Dr. Usman Bugaje is a scholar, a political analyst, and of course an elder statesman. Is live with me here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and it's good to see you again.
My pleasure, Sean.
Always a pleasure having you speak to us on some of these issues of the state of the nation. Now, there are a lot of people who will say our tax laws are outdated, if you call it old and irrelevant in a lot of ways. But I mean, the little bit that we heard when it was read on the floor today, how does it make you feel if it does look like there's going to be a restructuring of the Nigerian tax system? In fact, it's going to have a new name if it's passed into law.
Well, in any case, there is nothing in a name, really. I'm not impressed by any change of name. I'm impressed by the substance. These things that are being done are long overdue. But that's not where the problem is. And it's important that we prioritize. We look at the bigger picture. Sean, you can restructure the tax system, be fair, avoid double taxation, and sort of bring in more money. But how does that help us? If that money that has been collected is going to be put together and paid to some contractor in some road that we have never heard about, and nothing appears thereafter, and the whole money has been stolen. Femi Falana, the senior advocate, just talked about a contract that was, duly awarded with all the processes and procedures, and that today, barely 3 years after, nobody is even claiming. I mean, you can't even find the contractor. You can't find the job done. Where is the money? Where is the contractor? Where are the processes? So, I mean, yes, it's good to fine-tune and become more efficient in terms of governance. I mean, tax governance. But my mind actually goes to the fact that after collecting the money, where does the money go? And this is the question we should be worried about, not worried about these things.
And when we look at what is obtainable in other climes, and at a point where we have economic difficulties in the country, and the realities of the average person is also very concerning. And you look at it, their purchasing power. If you look at some of the companies that deals in selling these bigger supermarkets in other climes, they cannot come here because the average person's purchasing power has been killed. What in your mind do you think can make us wake up our economy?
There are more consequences of what is happening now that I want us to turn our attention, right? Ask any university administrator or polytechnic or colleges of education, any of our tertiary institutions. Since they opened, many of them, nearly half of their students cannot come back to school because they don't have the money to pay for the registration. I have spoken to lecturers. I have family members who are in the university system, and they report to me. What does that mean in the next few years? You're having young people who have been frustrated out of education, not because they have failed to, but because the economy has basically impoverished them. They cannot even continue school. We have been battling the rural bandits. These are going to be the urban bandits in the few years ahead. And this is the kind of attention that we should be given. But because we don't think through our problems, because half of the time elected political leaders are busy with frivolities, they are not knowledge driven, they have no statistics right in front of them when they take decisions. So these things are completely ignored. And the country will continue to, if you like, invite this, kind of, it will elicit the kind of problems that we're talking about. So we have seen them in other countries where they ignored these issues and they had this backlash, and it's going to come. It's already here, but I don't think government understands what is happening. I don't see them, speaking to the issues. I don't see them addressing the real problems. They keep going tiptoeing around the real problems and coming up with optics and cosmetics and inconsequential issues, while the real big issues are there waiting unaddressed. And this is my point. These big issues are going to generate the kind of backlash that can consume all the elites.
There is an erosion of the middle class that's supposed to be the fulcrum of our society. A little bit of those who are in the lower ladder, and a handful of those who are up there. That's how a reasonable society should form. But we have a situation, we have those in the upper and those the majority in the lower class, impoverished. Over 100 million of poor people in our society today. It means a whole lot. And it then means that this government and all the governments in the federating units need to put on their thinking caps, because I'm of the school of thought that yes, the federal government has a huge responsibility on the global picture, but they are lazy and they are very, very irresponsible government at the federating unit who do not care about the people whom they govern over, because if they do, there are so fundamental and basic things that they should be doing, as such that the central should not be any of consequence to them. That is how a federal system should work. But where do we begin from? When we have a skilled societal structure and our people are suffering every day.
I think the real starting point is the political culture. In the last 25 years, we have developed a political culture that is not driven by knowledge, it's not driven by competence, it's not driven by conscience, it's not driven by any of those values, core values,
no morality,
core values that drive sane societies.
So how do we correct this? Where do we begin from?
We have to go back to leadership's selection process. We have to recalibrate the leadership recruitment process. At the moment, the leadership recruitment process has no criteria beyond the fact that you have a secondary school certificate. And I keep saying that criteria is not a criteria.
So we need to fix that in the Constitution.
Yeah. It may not go through. Ideally, we fix it in the Constitution. But any bill that seeks to introduce criteria in the leadership recruitment in the Constitution is dead on arrival. Because half or more than half of the parliament that is going to process the bill don't have that criteria that you're asking. And as you would expect, they will not allow any such thing to come. So therefore, the way to do it is that if you have a movement, a group of people that are convinced that this is something that we need to fix and are ready and have the courage of conviction, all they need to do is to pick a party, and this can be a small party, it can be a big party, but they can have a party that will agree, because the Constitution allows a party to have its own constitution, and a party within the INEC laws can, do its own, within its own constitution, design its own primary elections. And when you introduce criteria in those primary elections, you can then select very good, very conscientious, citizens who have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they have the values that go with it, and they are available. It's not that we don't have them.
Yeah, because I imagine
now when we have them, and then you also mobilize the society. And these are the people who, when they come into the National Assembly, they will expose the rot. They may expel them if they want to, but they will remain, and they will expose the rot that is taking place. These are the people, if you have a few of them in the executive arm, either at local government level or at governor's level, they will also expose the rot, and they will do things correctly. And immediately the kind of difference between what is right and what is wrong will become glaring, and people will demand for it.
Yeah, Dr. Bugaje, and I imagine we have in countries where members of parliament, there is a competition of who finish from Harvard, Ivy Leagues, who finish from tops. And there were times in this country where the likes of Obafemi Awolowo University, the University of Ibadan, there is a competition in classes of government, and those who say they finish from this school, there is a competition of knowledge. And we are now in a society where is a competition of something else other than knowledge. A big question as to those who will never even employ some class of people based on their knowledge to head their private enterprise. But these are the lowest of the lowest in knowledge base, are the ones leading at the best of us. It's a sad scenario. But the question is, 64 years down the line, we celebrated independence 2 days ago. And you've seen it all. You were here. You were on that day during independence. Is this the dream of our forefathers or our founding fathers? Is this what they saw?
Certainly it is not. And it all happened right under our nose. Ignorance, corruption, imbecility took over governance. And then the learned and the more competent had to pull back. And society is today being led by that lot, that group of people whose ambition is not to fix their country. They have even no sense of shame that they, as parliamentarians or as governors or as local government chairmen, are looking up to lead other countries or to catch up with their peers. No, they are just busy amassing wealth and corrupting young people, creating all manners of corruption and destroying basically the economy of their own country. For them, they cannot even see the dangers of what they are doing, for some of them, because the knowledge for you to understand the consequences is not even there. So they are some of the most dangerous people that we have in this country.
And that's why politics is seen as a dirty
Precisely.
game.
Our politics is just a bunch of basically, it's a laughing
where the thugs and the lowest of the society play their dirty game.
So we have to, those of us, who are worried about this, and those who will have the courage, to need to come together. It's not a matter of exactly
an aggregation of knowledge and like minds.
I have made this point severally that we must have an elite consensus as to where do we want our country to be. And in this matter, we have to rise above the pettiness of where you come from. We have to salvage this country. It doesn't matter where you come from, you need a country. Today, in the 21st century, you can only exist in a country. There is no, what you might call no man's land, where you can go and live your life. You have to live in a country. And therefore, you have to fix your country if you really want to have peace, and you have to have a life that is meaningful. And the way to do it is to get those with the vision, with the knowledge, with the commitment, with the values to come together and work out their way through the muddle that is available. It can be done. It should be done. And I'm still appealing that the elite should rise above this pettiness, create a kind of elite consensus. And I thought some people have started. I have started some platforms where I'm still working, towards that. That is the big tent, which we started with we started the also Rescue Nigeria project. But of course, what happens is that after the elections, most people pull back and try to sort out their personal problems. And in fact, the economy as it is now has made it more difficult for people to. But in spite of that, we still have a responsibility to come together to fix this country. And the only way to do it is to start the process of addressing the issue of leadership.
And thank you so much, Dr. Bugaje, for highlighting that. And I'm going to also point out that when the finest of our society sit back and do not participate in the political process, the charlatans will take over. And whatever they do, out of their lack of knowledge and character, will be whatever the rest of us will take. So it's important that when the elites come together and to lead by knowledge, because no society goes ahead or progresses without knowledge. And what pains me or what worries me more than what worries you is the fact that there is a generation behind my own generation that don't care about serious stuff. They don't care about our politics. They don't care about governance. They don't care about what matters to their nation. That worries me a lot because they think that anything other than this serious stuff is none of their business, and that worries me. But it brings me to a point, Dr. Bugaje, the president's speech on democracy. He mentioned and he touched on quite a few things. Issue of how to galvanize the Nigerian people, the need for unity. How do you assess President Tinubu's speech on the 1st of December?
The first thing is that that is not a speech. It's empty. The words are completely empty. How many times has he said that?
It went below your standard?
It's not even a standard at all. There are issues that worry people. He's supposed to speak about food security. That is what happens. He's supposed to tell us what he has done about food security.
He said that. He said that our farmers are going back to farm.
Which is not true.
He said that.
Which is not true.
We're going to wrap up
which is not
food
true.
production.
Which is not true. Has he spoken about the climate change that has wiped away whatever little gains we have done? Look at Maiduguri, look at Kebbi, look at Ibadan, look at so many other places, the flood. He doesn't even know what is happening in the country from the speech. Because if he did, he would have known that what is most important are the issues of food and the issues of security and the issues of the economy. You just mentioned it. The purchasing power has been completely destroyed. I mean, people who could use their earnings to buy food, they cannot do so now. Naira has basically no value at the moment. So these are the issues that he should be addressing. The fact that he acknowledges that citizens are going through very tough times, he doesn't realize that one, he has been elected not to acknowledge our suffering, but to fix it. And when he speaks to us, he should be speaking about how does he fix the problem. And then he does not live as if he knew that these things are happening. He's buying a new jet. He's traveling all over the place. His family members are doing all sorts of things. Is this the way to really empathize with citizens who cannot eat, who cannot sleep, who cannot go back to school, who cannot go to the hospitals? This is what is happening in this country.
Dr. Bugaje, just in about 40 seconds or thereabout, because we need to close. Your final thought on the program. I don't know when next I'm going to be able to grab you and get you into the studio. For the rest of over 200 million people of this country and millions of those of them who are watching, who have fortunate to have power, who are able to charge their phone and watching on their devices right now, what kind of hope can we garner as a people? And what should we be doing by this time next year when we talk about another Independence Day? How do we survive? How do we stand as a people for the sake of our country? Our country is that precipice that we need to salvage it, isn't it?
The few of us that are still able to breathe in this suffocating environment have a responsibility to rescue our country. And what we need to do is to come together, form networks, and see how we can address the question of leadership. Because everything that is happening to us, if you reduce everything to what it is, it comes to leadership. And it is this leadership that we need to focus upon.
Yeah.
We need to develop a criteria. You cannot be a president until you have certain things. Look at Singapore. Recently, there were about 4 people, and they run this criteria over and over again until they came out with someone who fit the criteria. They are not throwing away the others because they have some kind of collegial leadership. Anybody else would still be useful in a particular. Yeah. So I think the focus is leadership. Right. How do we change our leadership recruitment process so that we can get the kind of people who can fit this country? But the bunch that I hear now, I give exception for a few here and there, but a great majority of them are no use. They are destroying this country, and we have to stop them.
Dr. Usman Bugaje, a scholar, a political analyst, and of course, an elder statesman. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.